Once you've individually looked at supply and demand and understand the many factors that may shift those curves, it's important to look at supply and demand together and how those shifts impact one another. Now, just like supply and demand individually, supply and demand together can use a tool known as the supply and demand schedule. And this, again, gauges the market for an item to determine the supply and also the demand. Okay, this can tip the market off to let buyers and sellers know, what is the appropriate price for a transaction. Now, supply and demand schedules will look at the price of an item, like our Snickers bar, but it will look at quantity supplied as well as quantity demanded. And this will tell us a number of things. How many producers are willing to produce a product at a given price, as well as how many people there will be to produce that product. Okay, so if you look at 25 cents, okay, you'll notice that there are only 50 Snicker bars produced, but the quantity demanded is at 300. This tells us that there is a shortage in the market. There are more people that want Snicker bars than there are producers willing to make it. So what do we have to do? Well, we either have to make more Snicker bars or we simply raise the price. So if you look, the price gets raised to 75 cents. There's now an equal number of producers as there are consumers at 125 each. This is something known as the market equilibrium, okay, or market price. This is where we have buyers for each and every one of the items offered at a given price. This is the goal of any market. It's much easier to see on our other tool, which is known as, of course, the supply and demand curve. This is created with the information that we recorded on our supply and demand schedule, and it can help us to make market predictions and to see how the market reacts to certain situations. All right. Once again, we're going to use our line chart to put information about the Snickers bar on there and to see what impact this will have on our market price. All right, so we have our information in our supply and demand schedule, and we've plotted them on the graph here, and you can see that the supply line indicated in blue goes up, just like it should, supply to the sky, and our red line here is demand to the sand. So you can see how it reflects the quantities of both supplied and demanded. All right, it will also show us very interesting facts about this. For instance, in this case, in this market, looks like our equilibrium is right about $1. So I'm guessing these lines are a little off here. We just have to shift them down. Okay, that will better reflect our supply and demand schedule. So at 75 cents, there is the quantity of 125, looks like, both supplied and demanded. So right here where these X's meet, that is market price or equilibrium price. Any price above that, there is going to be a surplus, more supplied than demanded. Any price below this equilibrium price, there's going to be a shortage, less supplied than there is demanded. Okay? Just like on our individual supply and demand curves, when we have the supply and demand curves combined, if there's a change in price of the product in question, we're still going to shift along these lines. That's not going to change. Okay? So you got to make sure that you're still running along the line if the price is changing. Okay? So if suppliers decide to increase price, we're going to slide right up the line. Okay? If stores put a sale on the price, we're going to slide down the line. Okay, so make sure you are looking to see what your supply and demand curve is researching before you start shifting lines everywhere. If it is the price of the product in question, in this case Snicker bars, we're going to stay right on the lines. Okay, but just like supply and demand individually, there are things other than price that will shift it. Okay, take supply for instance. If we have a new technology that allows us to produce 1,000 times more Snicker bars a day, that is going to increase increase the quantity supplied at all prices. So we shift that blue line out there. Okay, this is my old blue line. This is my new blue line. Shift it out. Okay, so that is an increase in supply at all price points. Increase that supply at all price points. All right. What will this do to market price? Well, if we were here up at $1, there's so many more Snicker bars now that the price is actually going to decrease to about 60 cents a bar. All right. Because there's this excess of Snicker bars, they're going to lower the price to make sure that those Snicker bars get in the hands of all the people that want to pay for them. All right. But now let's take demand here. Demand to the sand, this red line. Let's say that consumer taste changes and everybody hates Snicker bars. Well, what impact is that going to have? It's going to shift demand for Snicker bars in. It's going to decrease the demand at all price points because people don't like Snicker bars anymore. I don't know, maybe they like Mounds bars or Milky Ways or something else, Kit Kats, but they certainly don't like Snicker bars anymore. So what impact is that going to have? That's going to lower the price as well. Because less people are demanding this at every price point, suppliers are going to be stuck with Snicker bars they can't sell. So they're going to have to lower their price down to meet the demand. Okay? Now, each time you shift it, you have to make sure that you are paying attention to properly labeling your chart, and otherwise you'll lose track. For instance, take this one in front of us here. Okay, as always, we've got price is on the vertical, quantity is on the horizontal, and we're always looking at 0 down in the corner. All right, always doing that. So first thing we're going to put is our demand to the sand, and supply labels on the line. Okay, next thing I'm going to find is that market price or equilibrium. And I'll drop that right there because that little meeting point where these two X's cross is what buyers and sellers are going to be willing to exchange this product for. Okay, now let's look at a question. Let's say that pizza is found to cure baldness. What impact will this have on the demand, supply and demand of pizza for bald people? All right, so bald people probably don't want to be bald anymore, like Mr. Stingle. So they're going to want more of this pizza at all price points. All right, this increase in demand is going to shift the market equilibrium up. All right, so our new demand curve, okay, is going to show us that the market price for pizza is going to increase because there's so many more people that want it. Suppliers are going to raise prices to meet that new demand line. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, so let's get rid of this line. And let's get rid of this guy. We'll move him back down. Let's say that there's a new technology to create pizzas. So Jack's Pizzas, all these frozen pizzas, they can create it 10 times faster. Okay, this is going to have the effect of increasing supply at all price points because it's easier to make them. Because there's so many pizzas flying around everywhere and the demand for pizzas hasn't changed at all, just the availability of pizzas, that is going to actually cause market price to decrease and settle at a lower price than it once was. Because there's so many pizzas available, producers are going to have to lower their prices to meet demand. All right, let's reset this thing here, get rid of the supply line, and let's do this one. The price of pizzas decreases. Well, if we're talking about the supply and demand curve for pizzas and the price for pizzas decreases, we're going to simply grab our market price and say it's decreasing to right here, which would show us that the quantity demanded has increased because the price has decreased. All right, so just because there's two X's doesn't mean we have to shift any of the lines. We still have to pay attention to whether or not it's just the price of the product in question. Practice doing these supply and demand shifts and ask any questions if you have them.